Kim, and today I would like to show you how to make the best chocolate chip cookies. So first off, we'll need to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've already got that set up. And next, I will go over the ingredients that we'll need today to make these delicious cookies. So first, we'll need some butter. Ideally, it'll be softened at room temperature, so you can take it out a day in advance, or if you need to, you can always find ways and tricks to microwave it to make it soft. We'll also be using some brown sugar. I am using light brown sugar today, but you can use dark brown sugar if you want as well. Whatever you have on hand is fine. You'll also need some sugar, just some plain white sugar, and 1 egg. And then we'll also need our flour, some baking soda, salt, baking powder, and last but not least, chocolate chips. Semi-sweet usually works the best, but again, it's whatever your preference is. All right, so we'll also need a bowl to mix the dry ingredients in, and I am using my KitchenAid today, but you can also use a hand mixer or a whisk if you want to use your elbow grease. So to start out with, we need 3/4 cup of brown sugar, and it needs to be packed, so you want it to be nice and firm. So I will be doing 3 scoops of a 1/4 cup, which will be 3/4. And make sure to pack it. So next we'll do 3/4 cup of sugar, just plain white sugar. So again, I only have a 1/4 cup measuring cup, so I will be doing 3 scoops. We will also be adding our butter in next. So remember to have it nice and room temperature, so it's not hard, but it's not like melted. And then lastly, we will add our 1 egg to the sugars and butter. And I always like to wash my hands after I crack the egg and put the butter in because it gets on your fingers and it doesn't feel very good. So the next step is with either your KitchenAid or with your hand mixer. You will mix those 4 ingredients until they're well combined. So now that those ingredients are combined, we're going to grab our other bowl, and with this bowl we're going to put in our flour. So we need 2 1/4 cups flour. Let's see. It might get a little messy, so that's okay. That's what baking's all about. So we've got 1 cup going in the bowl. 2nd cup in the bowl. And then, since it's a 1/4 cup, I'll go back to using the 1/4 cup I used for my sugar. Scoop that and toss it into the bowl. The next ingredient we'll put into our dry mixture is our baking soda. And we'll need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Next is salt. And we'll be doing a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Make sure you grab your 1/2 teaspoon, not your 1/4 teaspoon. And sprinkle it in there. And lastly, we're going to add our baking powder. That is a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. So I'll grab the right one. Now, what should we use to combine them? We'll use a big wooden spoon to combine them together. So we'll just mix it. That way when we pour it into our other mixture, it'll be all ready to go, which brings us to our next step. With our butter sugar mixture, we're going to gradually add our flour mixture. We don't want to do it all at once because it'll poof into your face and it might explode everywhere, so it just makes it easier to mix it in and combine. So I'm going to just use one of my scoops that I've been using and add it in. We'll do a little bit before we start. Sounds like our oven's all preheated, so we're ready to go. So I'll throw a couple scoops in now. Make sure it's locked. Start out slow, and you can work it to a faster speed. After all your flour's mixed in there, I like to grab my wooden spoon or spatula, whatever you have on hand. We can't really have rubber spatulas because one of our cats eats them. So we'll scrape down the edges, make sure everything is off the side. We'll give it one last good mix, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. So this part, if you're using a KitchenAid, if you have one of those, you can use your hands to push them out, get all the dough off. And if you're using a hand mixer, you can kind of just slowly take them out and squish it out either with a spoon or your fingers. It's baking, so it's all right. So with this, we move on to our final step before we roll them up and put them in the oven. So we'll go back to our bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And this is where preference comes in. Some people like their cookies full of chocolate chips and will use the whole bag. I've found that over the years I use about 3/4 of a bag because I don't quite want all the chocolate chips in there. So it's really up to you. With our wooden spoon, we got our chocolate chips in here. We can just mix it all together. You want the chocolate chips to be pretty evenly distributed throughout the dough. So our final step before baking it will be to roll out our cookies and put them on the trays before putting them in the oven. So I've never greased my trays beforehand, but you could always put them on parchment paper if you're worried about them sticking, or if you have cooking spray, that's all right. But I usually just throw them right onto the trays. This is where we use our hands again. We'll roll them into just about 1-inch size balls. And so we'll do as many as it takes to use the rest of the dough. And so this recipe I've been making since I was back in middle school, which is quite a while ago. And at this point I have the recipe memorized because I've made it so many times. So it is one of my all-time favorite cookie recipes. All right, I've got my first tray ready to go. So before getting started on the next round, I'm going to put these ones into the oven. And so usually about 8 to 10 minutes should do just fine, and so I will put them in for 9 minutes, right in between. So now we wait, and in the meantime, I like to get the second tray going because there's usually a good amount left. And there we go. That's the next tray ready to go. And looks like we still have a little bit left over, so I usually wait until the first round of cookies are done, take those off to let them cool, and then I'll get those onto the next tray while the other ones are cooking. So my timer just went off, and I'm going to at least take a peek in there and see how they're doing. And I think I'm gonna leave them in there for just a little bit longer, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute, just a little more brown on top. But not too brown because we don't want them to be burnt or too crunchy, unless you like a crunchy cookie. I usually like mine a little softer though. All right. So we'll take these ones out, and we'll get the other tray in there right away so they can get going. And again, I'll set the timer for 9 minutes. And when they come out of the oven, of course, they're going to be a bit squishy, but as they cool, they keep a little bit of a squishy center, but are nice and crunchy on the edges. Press it for about a minute or so. I'm transferring the cookies onto a wire rack. Mostly I'll put them on a plate, but I have a wire rack right now, so I might as well. And that'll help them cool, and then it'll open up our tray so that we can get our last batch going. All right, no casualties. They've all been transferred without breaking, so I guess I won't eat them just yet. And with our final little bit, we'll roll them up and put them onto the tray. All right, so the timer went off for our second round of cookies. I'll take a peek at them. And we'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Okay. Take those out and put our last batch of cookies in the oven. Get our timer set. And then right about now is the time where I start to like try to clean up the mess that I've made, put things back where they belong, put things in the sink, get them rinsing so that they're not getting stuff crusted onto them, and then I'll wipe down the counters once everything's done. All right, so our final batch of cookies are looking like they're done. So we'll take them out and let them cool. I'll shut off the oven, but now is the fun part. Get to try a cookie. That's a good cookie. So thanks again for letting me finish this cookie. And thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you learned how to make some wonderful cookies. And let me know how they turn out if you try them. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.